Welcome to the Neuro Air podcast, the show for cycle breakers, parents, young adults, and helping professionals ready to understand their nervous system through a generational lens, heal what isn't theirs to carry, and consciously choose what comes next. Hi, I'm your host, Leanna Hunt, an associate clinical mental health counselor and certified performance coach. Each week, you'll get stories, science, and somatic practices, plus my signature 4N framework: notice, name, nurture, and navigate, to help you honor resilience, break silence, and build deeper connection with yourself and those you love, all while shaping a legacy of safety, freedom, and possibility. Welcome back to the Neuro Air podcast. Today is episode 22, and today we arrive at the fourth N. We've taken a deeper dive into notice, name, and nurture, and today is all about navigate. If you've been walking through this series with me, I hope you have felt the ability to slow down and intentionally connect more to yourself. Notice asks you to pay attention. Name helps to reduce shame. Nurture helps you build safety in your own body. And now we talk about conscious movement and direction. This is navigate. So I want to start with a story. When David and I were on our honeymoon in Oahu in December of 1999, such a long time ago, we decided we wanted to explore the island. We were super young, brand new newlyweds, wanting to be adventurous, certain that we could figure anything out. And all we had was this giant paper map. Some of you listening may have never had to use one before. In 1999, there was no GPS, no Siri telling us where to turn, and definitely no blue dot showing us exactly where we were. Just the two of us in a very small rental car up around Diamond Head, trying to navigate these tiny little streets that didn't seem to match what I was looking at on the page. And somewhere between, I think it's this left, and no, you missed it, we had our first real argument as a married couple. And looking back, I now know it really wasn't about the map at all. It was about frustration, about feeling unheard, about not wanting to be wrong, about both of us wanting to feel competent. And at the very old ages of 20 and 22, we didn't even know that yet. We just knew we were irritated and slightly lost. We do laugh about it now, which is really good. And we reflect on that trip often. Because what we didn't realize in that moment was that we weren't just learning how to read a map. We were learning how to navigate. And our navigating skills in marriage have grown so much since then because we have developed a lot more capacity. We have learned how to pause instead of escalate, how to use our words to say, I'm overwhelmed instead of you're wrong. We've both learned how to repair. We've both learned how to take those deeper breaths before reacting, how to turn around when we missed an exit without making it mean that something bad or something wrong is with the other person. And that's what I want to talk about today. So if notice brings awareness and name reduces shame and nurture builds safety, then navigate is where you realize you actually have a steering wheel. There's something I've actually been thinking about in connection to moving from the step of nurture to navigate, and I've been thinking about it for a long time, and it's something I see in my work. There's something I believe that is important happening neurologically when we move from the third N to the fourth, and this is where it helps to understand a little bit about how our brains have evolved over time. We all carry older survival circuitry in our nervous systems. The brainstem and the deeper subcortical regions are responsible for basic survival, including things like heart rate, breath, threat detection, and things like reflexive responses. These systems developed early in evolutionary history. Their job is simple and brilliant: keep you alive. There is not fulfillment here. There is not growth mindset here. There's nothing about helping you repair your marriage or helping you rewrite generational patterns. This part of the brain its job is to keep you alive. When threat is perceived, these systems activate in the body. They don't ask whether the threat is emotional or physical. They don't imagine future outcomes. These parts of the brain, they mobilize, they fight, they fly away, they freeze, and now we see appease. That's survival circuitry doing exactly what it was designed to do. And many of our ancestors lived much closer to survival conditions than we do now. Their systems were often operating in chronic activation. Remember that when your nervous system is bracing for danger, there isn't a lot of bandwidth left for imagining new possibilities. You don't philosophize when you're being chased. You don't explore self-actualization when you're trying just to endure. But here's where navigate can become so powerful. Human brains also developed a highly complex prefrontal cortex, as I have mentioned several times before. This is the area right here behind your forehead responsible for planning, impulse control, perspective taking, moral reasoning, future orientation, and cognitive flexibility. This is the part of you that can pause. This is the part of you that can say, just because I feel this, it doesn't mean I have to act on it. This is also the part of you that can say, this pattern makes sense, but I can choose differently. This is also the part of you that can say, what would future me want here? This is deeper than survival. This is integration. This is higher order regulation. Research also shows that chronic stress impairs prefrontal cortex functioning. When those stress levels decrease and the nervous system can return to a more regulated state, prefrontal flexibility and executive control can recover, meaning you literally gain access to so many more options. So when I say navigate feels like a newer part of the brain system, what I mean is this: navigate requires integration. It requires the survival circuitry to feel safe enough that the prefrontal cortex can lead. It requires enough regulation that you can imagine, maybe things can actually improve in my life. Maybe healing is actually possible. Maybe generational patterns can shift with me. And maybe what has been doesn't have to be what will be forever. That capacity to imagine something different is uniquely human, and it only becomes accessible when safety increases. That's why navigate is not about forcing change. It's about leading from a place of regulation. It's about allowing your evolved, integrative brain to guide you instead of you reactive to, again, that old part of the brain and that survival circuitry. Not because survival is bad. We all need that, and we need that part of our brain still. But because survival was never meant to be the permanent driver. Last week, my mom gave each of my siblings and me a quilt that she had made for my dad's shirts. Sorry. It's been just over a year since he passed away. And when she wrapped that quilt around me, I was instantly flooded with so many emotions because I recognized most of those shirts immediately on the quilt, shirts that he has worn for years. And over this last week, I found old photos of my kids and me standing next to him in these shirts. It's strange how fabric can hold memory like that. And this quilt for me is more than material. It carries history and also a bunch of emotions that still feel pretty complex for me, if I'm honest. And as I've sat with this, I've realized something. I am now navigating what is next in healing my relationship with my dad without him even being here. There are conversations I wish I could have had now that I have language that I didn't have before. There are regulation tools that I teach now to my clients that I wish I could have offered to him. There are moments I wonder about what might have shifted if safety, permission, and emotional vocabulary had been more available. But what I'm also coming to understand is this: navigate isn't about blaming the past. It's about deciding what I do with what I've inherited. Maybe my dad didn't take certain steps in his lifetime, and I'm seeing that it's not because he didn't care and not because he didn't love in the ways he knew how, but maybe because he did not have the capacity. Maybe he didn't have that felt sense of safety within himself. And maybe he didn't have his own map. And now I get to choose how I move forward with what he gave me, both the strengths and the limitations. To me, this is generational evolution. When we get to consciously choose what comes next, and oftentimes differently from our families and those that came before us, we are not betraying our ancestors. We are building on them. We are building on their sacrifice. We are building on everything that they endured that brought you to this point in your own life with your body, your life, your freedoms, and everything you get to enjoy. And I don't know if I have said this before or not on the podcast, but once you can see the pattern in yourself, and again, this pattern that often has come maybe for the last 100 years before you, you are no longer at its mercy. I want to say that one more time. Once you can see the pattern, you are no longer at its mercy. And once you can see the pattern, you're also no longer just a passenger in your own life. Again, you have a steering wheel. When I teach clients about belief systems and parts work, I often use a driving metaphor. I say, if you're not happy with where you are, including your relational patterns, your own behaviors, your emotional states, it's worth asking, who is driving the car of your life? I want to ask you that right now. Who is driving the car of your life? Who is in charge of the steering wheel? Is it still a belief system that formed when you were 6 or 7? Is it a protective part that equates hypervigilance with safety? Is it a shame narrative that says you must earn rest? Remember, beliefs ultimately drive our behavior. Our parts, these parts of us that have been stuck throughout time, they drive our reactions. And often it's our unmet needs that run the show. And with this step of nurture doesn't rip the steering wheel away. Nurture says, I see you. You have been trying to keep us safe. And then with navigate says, I'm here now and I've got this. Navigate to me is such a powerful step of self-leadership. And this is where I want to make something very clear about the difference between nurture and navigate. Remember, nurture is about safety. Nurture says, come here, you make sense. Let's slow this down. It's a hand on your chest. It's intentional breathing. It's beautiful, small moments of self-compassion. It's moments where you stay with yourself. Nurture helps stabilize the nervous system. It truly does. And then navigate helps mobilize it. Nurture helps you feel, and then navigate helps you choose. Nurture builds capacity, and then navigate helps you use it. If you try to navigate without nurture, it might feel like force. And it could sound like to you, I should be over this by now, or I need to just move on, or I've done enough healing. And that creates pressure in your system. But if you only nurture without navigating, then that healing can become circular. You understand the part, you soothe the part, you validate the part, and then nothing shifts. So without navigate, it might feel like you're stuck in the same argument with yourself or others. Is that ringing true for anyone? Or it might feel like you're reliving the same pattern, or you just keep going in circles. Nurture widens the nervous system, and navigate steps into that widened space and chooses. Let's take a minute and look at Sarah, the composite client that I've used over this series. Sarah has practiced notice. She has practiced name. She knows it's this protective part of her, not her full identity. She's also been practicing nurture. She has spent deepened time with the anxious part of her. And now instead of judgment, she breathed deeper in these moments. She has softened towards herself. She offers self-compassion instead of constant criticism. And now Sarah is learning to arrive at the fourth N, navigate. For Sarah, navigate looks like not sending the reactive text at 10:42 p.m. and instead turning her phone into do not disturb mode and turning on a sleep meditation. Navigate for her looks like asking for clarification from her mom about something that happened at a family party instead of assuming rejection. It looks like pausing before quitting her job over something her boss implied. For Sarah, it's now having the boundary conversation with a loved one. It's letting herself rest for a few minutes when she gets home from work without pushing through because she felt like she didn't earn it. None of these on their own might seem like life-changing or dramatic, but are all profoundly different from the patterns that she has been living in and also what she has been ignoring. Because navigate is behavior that emerges from regulation. And research shows that when stress decreases, cognitive flexibility increases. Again, when that prefrontal cortex comes back online, you can actually evaluate options. You can inhibit impulses and think long term. When your nervous system feels safer, you literally feel like more choices are available. And what does navigating what's next actually look like in real life for you? Maybe it's staying in the conversation 5 minutes longer instead of shutting down. Maybe it's starting to say, hey, I really need a minute instead of slamming the door. Maybe it's learning to let your child feel disappointed without rushing in to rescue them. Maybe it's not rescuing your parent from their own discomfort. Maybe it's applying for that position even though the anxious part of you still is trying to tell you that you're not ready. Maybe for you now, navigate is choosing therapy, coaching, or support, even if your family never talked about emotions growing up. Maybe it's starting to turn off your phone instead of doom scroll when your body says, hey, that's enough. Maybe it's going for a walk instead of shutting down. Maybe it's saying, I'm feeling hurt without attacking in return. Maybe it's saying, hey, I was wrong without collapsing into shame. Maybe it's starting the business even though your lineage prioritized security. And maybe, just maybe, it's staying in your marriage, but staying differently and choosing with your partner to both heal forward. For me, navigate currently looks like this. It's been a lot about talking about my dad and our complex relationship instead of keeping him in silence. For me, it's still learning to eat when I'm hungry instead of when I'm shutting down or feeling overwhelmed. And a big one for me, it's been going to bed when I'm tired instead of that part of me that tells me, Leanna, you have to just keep pushing through. And for me, it's declining the invitation when my nervous system needs quiet instead of going out of obligation. For all of us, navigate is this: acting on our new awareness, stepping into greater self-agency. And remember, navigate is not always about changing your circumstances. Sometimes it's about changing your position from passenger to driver. Like on my honeymoon, you don't have to frantically take the whole island in one drive. You just take the next turn consciously and then the next. That's how navigating skills grow. That's how marriages mature beyond paper maps and the tiny streets around Diamond Head. That's how grief becomes integration instead of silence. That's how belief systems loosen, and that's how legacy shifts, not through force, but through repeated, regulated choice. Maybe that's what navigate really is. It's not about perfection, but it is direction. Remember, you don't have to drive fast. You just have to stay awake. You just have to stay conscious enough to hold the wheel. And if you can pause, if you can allow yourself to feel, and if you can choose, then you already have more capacity than you think. You are not lost. You are learning how to steer. And here's what I want you to truly understand as we close this series. The 4 N's are not random steps. They are how we widen the window of tolerance in real time. Notice expands awareness of when you are leaving your window. Name brings language to your state, reducing shame and recruiting that prefrontal cortex saying, hey, come back online, let's work together. Nurture increases the felt sense of safety in the body, helping you return to your window instead of spiraling further outside of it. And navigate is what becomes possible because your window has widened. When you are inside your window of tolerance, you have access to choice. When you are outside of it, in hyperarousal or hypo, survival runs the show. So navigate isn't about white knuckling better behavior. It's about recognizing I am regulated enough right now to choose. That is the difference, guys. When your window widens, you don't stop feeling anger. You don't stop feeling grief, and you don't stop feeling anxiety. You just don't lose yourself inside of them anymore. It allows you to stay present longer. You can tolerate discomfort without collapsing. You can repair instead of retreat and shrink. You can pause instead of explode. And over time, this is the part that matters. Your window stretches, not because you forced it open, but because you keep practicing the 4 N's. Notice, name, nurture, and navigate, and you practice them over and over. That repetition builds neural flexibility. It strengthens prefrontal regulation. It increases that interoceptive awareness, and it teaches your nervous system, hey, we can feel this and we survive. And that changes everything, because once you can stay inside your window longer, your life starts to look different. Your marriage can improve. Your parenting can strengthen. Your relationship to grief, ambition, rest, and faith, all of it can shift. Let me say this really clearly. Widening your window of tolerance is not about becoming calm all the time. And I hope you guys always remember that. But it's capable of staying with intensity, capable of staying connected, capable of choosing your responses, capable of leading yourself. And when you lead yourself differently, you interrupt those generational patterns. You get to expand what's available to the people who come after you. You become the one in your lineage who learned how to stay, the one who stays with emotion, who can sit with discomfort, who can say what's true, and who can expand that sense of love inside of them and for others. This truly is legacy repair. And remember, it does not happen in one dramatic breakthrough. It happens in 1,000 small regulated turns of your steering wheel. And when I go back and think about that quilt my mom made from my dad's shirts, I see this work in a different way. Those shirts by themselves were history. Lots of moments. These shirts carry lots of different patterns. Years lived the only way he knew how. But all stitched together, they become something so new. They become this incredible warmth. And that's integration. And that's what the 4 ends are doing inside of you. Notice lets you see the pieces. Name helps you understand them. Nurture allows you to hold them without the shame, and navigate helps you decide how they move forward with you. Remember, none of us are here to erase the past, but we are here to integrate it. We are here to choose that we can carry it differently. And sometimes that's what generational repair really is. It's not rewriting history, but it's transforming how it's held. So if you take nothing else from this series, let it be this. When you notice, you step into awareness. Again, when you name, you're working towards stepping out of the shame. When you nurture, you are increasing that sense of safety with yourself and with others and the world. And when you navigate, you truly embody self-agency. An agency that shows up inside a widened window of tolerance is freedom. Again, not freedom from emotion, but freedom to choose within it. Remember, just like me and my honeymoon, you don't have to drive the whole island in one night. Just stay inside your window long enough to take the next conscious turn. That's it, guys. That's the work. That's the rhythm of this healing journey. That's the 4 ends in real time. And that's how we move from survival into self-leadership. And that's how self-leadership moves into generational repair. Remember, you are not broken, my friends. You are building beautiful capacity within yourself and in your families. And you are learning how to steer. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all your feedback, for the beautiful conversations. As always, if you have a question, you can reach out on Aligning with Leanne on my Instagram page, or go to the show notes and fill out the form for the anonymous survey. So until next time, bye guys.